New York City, this is Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street.
And happy weekend to all. Welcome to the program that analyzes the week that was and helps position you for the week ahead. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Team Biden trying to turn the tide as more voters say they trust former President Trump's handling of the economy over Biden's. Cabinet members fanning out across the country over the next week, trying to drum up support for Biden's economic accomplishments as we count down to the CNN presidential debate.
The president has taken action to bring down the deficit. He signed $1 trillion in deficit reduction already, improved tax fairness, put forward an affordability agenda that's heavily focused on bringing down these costs.
Well, he's not bringing down the deficit. The Congressional Budget Office this week reporting that Biden's massive spending and student loan bailout plan is behind the 27% increase to the deficit estimated for 2024. That is up by $400 billion. And Biden's overall approval ratings on top issues remain underwater. According to the latest Fox News polls, a whopping 68% of voters rate the current state of the economy as poor. And 45% of voters say that they're falling behind financially under this administration. Joining me now is Tennessee Senator and member of the Senate Finance Committee, Marsha Blackburn. Senator, great to see you this weekend. Thank you so much for being here. Your reaction to all of this ahead of the debate on Thursday, we're expecting all of these issues will be front and center.
Maria, the American consumer knows that they are worse off now than they were under Donald Trump. They're looking at what they're paying when they fill up the tank, when they go to the grocery store. They're looking at their heating bill. The rent is going up. And they're saying, I can't afford this. We hear it every day from Tennesseans. They know that the first thing that needs to happen is government spending that is out of control needs to be dealt with. When you've got an administration who keeps running the printing presses and they're overspent, think about that, they are overspent by $1.92 trillion, then the American consumer is saying, hey, wait a minute, something's got to give. We're tired of this. It is going to help Donald Trump win this election in November.
Well, your colleague, Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin, along with 68 other Democrat lawmakers, sent a letter to Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas this week. They're pushing to create a new pathway for Palestinian refugees to more easily enter this country. All of this on top of the 10 million illegals already in the country on Biden's watch. Your reaction?
What we need to do is make certain that we know who's coming in this country and the reason they're coming in. And people will tell you they do not know if someone is telling them the truth about who they are and where they're from. And of course, as we hear about the migrant crimes that are coming up and the lack of vetting and these individuals that came in contact with asylum officers, with Border Patrol, and now they're committing the crimes in the country. This is heartbreaking, and the American people are saying this has to be dealt with. Security moms are out in full force and saying we want to know who is coming into the country and why they're here.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're now learning that more than 1,500 migrants from Tajikistan are here, a country known as a hotbed of ISIS terrorists. They've been flocking across the southern border for the past 3.5 years. So they're here. More experts are issuing warnings as a result of an imminent terrorist attack on U.S. soil. How do you see it?
Maria, we're very concerned about this. When you have the 10 million that we know of, and then, of course, you've got the known and unknown gotaways, and not knowing who is here, this is very troubling to the American people. When the FBI director says he sees red lights flashing everywhere he looks when it comes to the issue of terrorism and terrorist attacks on U.S. soil.
I mean, we've heard stories this week where the Border Patrol confirmed that the mother of five, Rachel Morin, was killed by an illegal who entered the country during the last couple of years. A 13-year-old raped by an illegal who entered the country in the last 3 years. A gotaway. I mean, all of these stories are happening, and we're actually now seeing the impact of all of these unknown questions coming over the border.
Indeed, we are. And I talked with Sheriff Gaylor from Hartford County. That is a community considered to be a very safe community. And they have had 2 individuals murdered now by illegal aliens in this country. They had come into contact with law enforcement. They had not been deported. And now they are carrying out these crimes. Maria, they're fearful of what is going on in their community, in their neighborhoods that they may not know about, and worried about these illegal aliens that are coming in that are not being apprehended, or if they're apprehended by local law enforcement, then ICE is not deporting them. Yeah. This is why every town's a border town, every state's a border state.
Yeah, and what can you do about it as an elected official, Senator? When is this going to end?
One of the things we know is that the border was most secure under President Donald Trump, and Biden's border policy is an open border. I have legislation, the CLEAR Act, that would require the deportation of criminal illegal aliens. We are working overtime trying to build bipartisan support for them because, Maria, this would require for these illegal aliens, when they've committed a crime, to be deported, to be barred from ever entering the country. This is what people are wanting to see. Absolutely. And after Donald Trump goes back to the White House in January, build that wall, make certain there's better technology at the border, and then make certain these criminal illegal aliens, once they're apprehended at the local level for some type of crime commission, then they are deported and barred from ever coming back in the country.
Well, we'll be watching this. Of course, people are scared, Senator. Great to have you this weekend. Thanks very much for your leadership on the subject. Senator Marsha Blackburn joining us. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, another record week for stocks, but how long can this rally last? Market strategist Larry McDonald with warnings for investors coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Take a look at where markets ended a week of more record highs. The S&P 500 crossing 5,500 for the first time ever on Thursday, driven by shares of NVIDIA, which also powered the NASDAQ. But where do markets go from here? Joining me now is the Bear Traps Report's founder and New York Times bestselling author, Larry McDonald. Larry, great to see you again. Thank you so much for being here. I want to get your take on all these records. What are you expecting for the second half of the year, as here we are closing in on the end of the first half?
Well, Maria, a year ago when the economy was showing some weakness and there was a lot of negative sentiment on the economy, a lot of stocks were outperforming. Your Lululemons, your big consumer names were outperforming, McDonald's. And today we're seeing consumer discretionary names, a lot of big Hall of Fame names underperforming the market. And so that's telling you that for the first time, underneath the surface, there's a lot more concern about the economy than meets the eye.
So do you think investors will pivot? Or are they going to continue piling in big tech? I mean, look at NVIDIA becoming the most valuable company in the world this week, $3.3 trillion in market value.
Exactly. The Citigroup Economic Surprise Index is making new lows. U.S. 10-year yields are being bid. In other words, bonds are bid. And like you said, you've got NVIDIA trading 90 this week. It traded 96% above its 200-day moving average for a $3.3 trillion company. I want you to understand, 97% above its 200-day moving average. The best Apple could ever do in the last 5 years when it was that big a company was 61% above its 200-day moving average. The best Microsoft could ever do was about 36% above its 200-day moving average. So this is just complete insanity, nosebleed territory. And it's a company that has, 70-80% of its sales out to maybe 14 or 15 counterparties. So it's not like they have billions of sales out to billions of people.
Mm-hmm. Well, Larry, you've also noted a move in the transport average. Tell me about the transportation average and what it's telling you right now.
Yes. So the super regional banks, so U.S. Bancorp, Zions, Comerica, and the transports are both not confirming this big rally in equities. In other words, economically sensitive equities are much weaker than the market. And at the same time, the high yield markets are triple C, so the junks of the junk, and also just junk bonds by themselves, all year long, when stocks made new highs, the high yield market junk bonds were confirming the move in equities. Now money's coming out of high yield, and that tells me that some of the smart money is going to take the rest of the year off and maybe go to a nice juicy 5% money market fund.
Wow. Well, look, I was noting the 10-year Treasury this week all the way back down to 4.2%. So, you would expect some yields to be up. Why is the 10-year going down?
See, that's another weird thing. So in the first quarter, when stocks were making new highs, bonds were selling off, and so there was higher yields. Now, this economic concern under the surface, look at jobless claims. If you look at the 10-day moving average on jobless claims, that's like moving at a very high accelerated rate higher. And so bonds know something, high yield bonds know something, the transports know something, and the breadth inside the market is deteriorating at the fastest pace we've seen in about over a year, where, in other words, 21% of the S&P, 21% of the S&P is in three stocks. In 2019, those top three stocks were only 8% of the S&P 500. And so, ladies and gentlemen, sitting at home, your 401k has been hijacked.
Wow. Yeah, it's really incredible. Before you go, Larry, real quick, second half of the year, how do you want to allocate capital? Are there areas to hide if, in fact, you're right, things are going to unravel here?
Well, the dollar's been very strong, and so that's hurt emerging market equities. So you go back toward emerging markets, the EEM, ETF, things like that are globally diversified. Global value, the EWU ETF is a global value equities that diversified in commodity-sensitive names like your Rio Tintos, your BHPs. That's where you want to be for the second half.
Well, certainly commodities have been on the move as well. Great point there. Larry, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Maria.
All right, Larry McDonald joining us. Have a great weekend. And here we go again. Trump and Biden taking the debate stage next week as top Democrats grow concerned over the Biden campaign strategy. Karl Rove is here, breaking it all down next. Welcome back. Familiar foes set to clash this upcoming week. Trump and Biden going head-to-head in the CNN presidential debate this Thursday. As we are getting new fundraising numbers, Trump's haul last month blowing away Biden's cash advantage by $56 million. The latest polling also showing the former president beating Biden in 6 key swing states. From a White House Deputy Chief of Staff and Fox News contributor, Karl Rove writes in the Wall Street Journal, this debate is an unusually early make-or-break moment. If one candidate has a bad night, undecided voters could flock to his opponent, and it will be difficult to rehabilitate their campaign. Karl Rove joins me right now. Karl, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Give us more insights and tell us more about your observations ahead of this debate.
Yeah, look, it is a make-or-break event, the earliest presidential debate ever. The next one is going to be 11 weeks after this one. So if somebody screws up badly, it's going to be difficult for them to recover easily. We've seen it in the past. President Obama had a bad first debate, recovered a few weeks later in the second debate. Same with George W. Bush in 2004, recovered a few weeks later. But 11 weeks is an awful lot of time.
It's a great point. Now, Karl, the DNC chair is saying that Biden has the advantage over Trump if he sticks to this strategy. Watch this.
I think is a make or break moment for Donald Trump, because this is what Joe Biden's going to do. He's going to focus on Donald Trump's record, his record as a failed businessman, his record now as a convicted felon. When he was in the White House, he led an insurrection. That is the failure of Donald Trump.
I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, if I think about President Trump's record, I think actually it's pretty good. But there's a split with top Democrats who reportedly disagree with the strategy. Axios reports even some of Biden aides think focusing on Trump's character is a losing campaign. Carl, how do you see it?
Well, I don't think it's a smart move to put. I wrote in my column that whichever candidate spends more time talking about their trials, in the case of Trump, the New York business records case, in the case of Biden, his son's case, whichever case becomes the center point, it's a loser for the one who's raising it and making it an issue. Let's be clear. Let's step back for a minute. What does Biden need to do? The most important thing for Biden to do is to have a sustained mental acuity demonstrated throughout the debate. He can't give us word salad. He can't give us gobbledygook. He can't freeze. He can't lose his train of thought. We got to look at him at the end of 90 minutes and say he's got what it takes to occupy that important, funny-shaped office in the southeast corner of the West Wing. He's got to make this a choice. It's a choice between me and that guy. And that does require him to go on offense against Trump. But I'm not certain that the conviction is the thing that does it for him. And finally, he needs to say to the American people, I get you and where you are. Because last year, Bidenomics was a complete and unmitigated marketing disaster. Because I took a marketing course. If you got a bad product, don't put your name on it. And his economic policies are not popular with the American people. On the other hand, Trump has got his challenges, too. He's got to come across as reasonable and not unhinged. Remember that first debate 4 years ago? Screaming, yelling, interrupting. It was not a good look. He needs to make it a referendum. That is to say, do you like what he did? What Biden did on inflation and cost of living and immigration. And finally, he's got to make it about the future, not the past. It's not got to be about rigged elections and I got mistreated in New York courtrooms. People want to understand, what are you going to do in your second term and how does that affect me and my family?
Well, I mean, look, let's face it. President Trump got convicted, and days later, he was able to raise an enormous amount of money. So the quote-unquote lawfare is something people believe in, and they do believe that Trump was treated unfairly.
Yeah, absolutely. However, having said that, it also created doubts. I don't think it's an accident that since the beginning of June, we've seen a tightening in the national polls so that, for example, in the Real Clear Politics average, Trump's lead is sunk to a fraction of a point and will probably go negative. That is to say, Trump will be behind in the Real Clear Politics average when the last poll in March, which was in May, which was a 5-point lead for him in a Rasmussen poll, gets dropped off the average. There are like nine polls in the average. The next national new poll, unless it's as good as that Rasmussen poll, is going to show Biden slightly ahead. This is going to be a close race. It's not bad for Trump to be tied with him. Remember, he lost the popular vote in 2016 and won the Electoral College. This is not a popular vote referendum. But the polling is tight, and that's why one of the big reasons why this debate is such a high-stakes moment.
Yeah, well, Trump has been saying it's got to be a landslide so big that you can't rig it. But, Carl, let me get your take on Kamala Harris, because is it a reach to say, given all of these gaffes that we've seen from Joe Biden, is it a reach to say if you're voting for Joe Biden, you're actually voting for Kamala Harris?
Well, look, I run into this all the time. People say, you know, I liked what Trump did, but I don't like him personally. I prefer not to vote for him. But, oh, my God, Biden can't string two sentences together. And if something happened to him, she'd be an unmitigated disaster. As bad as Biden numbers are, her numbers are worse. So she's a drag on the Democratic ticket, but there's no way to replace her, and they won't. But it will be a factor in people's mind. It highlights how important Trump's choice is. People have got to be able to look at that person and say, if something happened to Trump, that person would be up to it, unlike if something happened to Biden, Harris isn't up to it.
Mm-hmm. All right. We will leave it there. We'll be watching. Carl, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Carl Rove joining us. I've got one important thing you need to know about ahead of next week.
Tacos, out in the street.
Welcome back. One thing you need to know about ahead of next week, Chipotle shareholders getting more than tacos and guac starting next Wednesday after approving a 50-to-1 stock split. With an increase in the number of authorized shares, this is one of the largest splits in New York Stock Exchange history. Chipotle has been trading above $3,000 since the end of April, and the stock is up better than 320% over the last 5 years. When the company first went public in 2006, it was listed at $22 a share. That's a whole lot of guacamole. We'll be following this on Mornings with Maria, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern. I hope you'll join me on Fox Business here. And I hope you'll join me on Fox News Channel. I'll see you on Sunday morning on the Fox News Channel at 10 a.m. Eastern, live for Sunday Morning Futures. I've got exclusive interviews this weekend with Trump Organization Vice President Eric Trump, ahead of the big debate next week, and Texas Congressman Dr. Ronnie Jackson. Plus, I'll be joined by retired Army General Jack Keane. Join us Sunday on Fox News Channel. That'll do it here for us on Fox Business. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you again next time.